Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain. As you can see, today I got my shades on because we're a little bit bright out here today. But this week I wanted to focus in on a couple of things. This being springtime, this is in our region on the western part of Oregon. This is the prime time when you get a lot of vegetative growth, particularly in grasses, weeds, and other things of that nature. So you tend to get a lot of very high energy growth going on, which has a lot of nutrients in it. And one of the things that we do at this time of year is we tend to try to make our batches of fertilizer that are going to carry us through until we get to spring of the next year. And the whole idea behind this is we will use grasses, weeds, or succulent parts of prunings that are all new growth and that have very little what you'd call cellulose in them. So they tend to be from vigorously growing things. And right now, grass is one of the things that's vigorously growing. So I just kind of wanted to walk you through, what we're going to be cutting, and then take you down and show you, how we're putting this together into our fertilizer barrels for this next year. So let's take a look out front where I'm going to be doing some cutting, and this is where I'm going to get a big pile of grass that's going to be ready to go. In we've got a 50-gallon barrel down below that we're going to be replenishing. So this is the area that I'm going to be cutting. If you'll notice that there's beside one lone bearded iris out there, there's a lot of grass right here. And some of it has started to put up seed heads, and I'm not too worried about it because they're not pollinated yet. And so it's all part of vigorous growth. And I'm going to be cutting this down with my scythe. And then we're going to be taking as much as we can down to our fertilizer barrel and show you how we're going to put this together. Now, we've done videos on using scythe, and I'll attach one kind of shows you the basics of how we run it. And the idea behind using a scythe is what I'm trying to do is cut the grass off and keep much of the integrity of it. I suppose you could use a mower, but I would tend to mash it up pretty good. And I guess at this point, what I'm trying to do is just get as much of it as possible in a non-destructive manner. I'm not trying to get it all, ground down, or, as it goes through a rotary mower, it tends to get pretty beat up, and then it will pretty much dry out pretty fast. Before I can get it down into my fertilizer barrel, I might have some of it already starting to dry out on me in this nice weather that we're having today. So it's also a lot better exercise and easier on the ears, and it's just something I kind of like to do. Okay, you can see the sun's setting a little lower, so it's a little easier to see out here tonight. We've got the windrow, it's pretty good. What I'm going to do is take a bunch of this down to our fertilizer barrel, and then we'll show you where things are looking at with that. So this really isn't too complicated. We're just going to take a bit of the what's here that we cut this afternoon. It's all still nice and succulent. So let's get that done, and then we'll show you what the fertilizer bucket looks like. Okay, so this is our fertilizer bucket. We've got two of these 50-gallon barrels, and this is where we take the majority of our fertilizer out for the year as we go through. This is one that's been mostly just grass, and I put in some I had some sweet pea trimmings from about a month and a half ago. Haven't really checked it since, and you can kind of see what it's done is it's kind of created its own it's got a little fungus stuff growing on the top, a little mold. The odor isn't too bad, and the cake is not too deep. So what we're going to do is just kind of mix this guy in, and then we're going to throw in a bunch of new grass on top. And what I'm trying to do is get a nice diversity of things. The stuff we added in before a couple of months ago was, like I said, it was a legume because it was all sweet pea trimmings. And this is going to be more just grass. There are some weeds in it. So the nitrogen level is going to be pretty good in this material. And I think, being that we're heading into spring, this is going to be something that we're going to be able to use really effectively in this barrel. Probably, I'm looking at right around the start of June. So when we get our warm season crops in here, this is kind of what we're going to be using. You can kind of see there's a little bit of air that was trapped in that cake that was on top. And so basically at this point, all I'm going to do is add in about enough to get the material about an inch from the top, and then just kind of stir it in. It's going to want to float to the top and form a cake as it begins to decompose. And what I found is there's enough biochar that I've put into this bucket over the last couple of years that I just keep refilling this guy. And since I'm using all green material, what happens is the material eventually breaks down and there's very little residue down at the bottom. So, I mean, at some point I am going to have to empty this barrel out and, you know, get rid of the residue at the bottom. But mostly at this point, all I'm doing is just adding to it. And as it decomposes down, I'll add more water and, you know, and continue to add more material into it. So like during the growing season, I'll probably add comfrey in here and, you know, maybe some tomato trimmings and, you know, that sort of thing. But everything that goes in here has to be a really succulent green and at the growth stage. Nothing that has, you know, begun to get woody or fibrous or anything like that. So you can't put in, you know, old spent veg into this stuff because it won't have the ability to break down very well at all. A cellulose does not break down very well at all using this method of decomposition. So, and what I'm trying to do is get the nutrients from the newer growth anyway, since most of the new growth has that's where the nutrients are at. And this stuff has worked pretty good. So this will be a 50 plus gallon barrel of fertilizer. And I've already got another one over here that I'll be using for the rest of the spring. And that was done last year. And then I've got some few barrels that are very specific, like I made some that were out of marigolds and zinnias and flower type stuff. And the extra buckets in the back over there are for making JMS and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a, you know, it's kind of a work area. But the basics, the big driver for me for the fertilizer is this. So the question people might ask is like, okay, is this really good fertilizer? And it's not a high-end fertilizer. So, I mean, it's not like 10, triple 10 or triple 16 or anything like that. It does not have that kind of power behind it. But what you're looking at on average is probably about, you know, 2%, 1 to 2% nitrogen, and probably in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 on the phosphorus and potassium. So, you know, I don't have any great test on it, but just in general, what I've been adding to it has really been a good tonic for boosting production. So look, as an example, I used the material that was in this bucket when we did the videos on fertilizing the ranunculus and getting them going. Let me just show you that the ranunculus are just about finished for the season. And so there was a lot of blooms that I didn't pick, but it looks really pretty cool. So let's go take a look at it. All right, this was the ranunculus. And as you can see, it bloomed really well. We took quite a few blossoms off of this stuff, but it still kept producing. But they're near the end of their season at this point, so the blooms look a little spent. But you can just see in general that the plants were really healthy. Now we used a combination of Jadam liquid fertilizer, 3 applications of that, and then also 2 applications of the fermented seawater. And you can see that these guys all got to good 2 to 3 feet high. We had very long stems. We had no bugs, no aphids, or anything of that nature in here. So now what I'm doing is I'll be going through this weekend and taking out the remaining blossoms, you know, for our enjoyment. And then pretty quick here, I'm going to come in here with the hedge shears and kind of top it. So that what I want these plants to do now for the next month or two is to focus in on making corms. And this is going to be our seed stock for next year. So I just wanted to show that, yes, indeed, the JLF does work. And it also works on peas. These guys are just getting started. As you can, snow peas are a little more aggressive than my snap peas. And it also works on our onions that were planted about a month ago, and they're just getting ready to start to bloom, they're starting to grow pretty good at this point too. So adding the material really isn't that complicated. Basically, just want to make sure I get the material into the bucket, and then that's about all I'm going to put in for this. Like I said before, I put in some stuff a couple of months ago, and I'm just going to push this down under the water until I get it all in here. And this stuff will senesce pretty fast, actually. So it's in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of yellowness on some of them, but that's not that big of a deal. These really haven't gone to the point where they've gotten super full of you know, cellulose or anything like that. So I can put some more in, it looks like. I'll just keep applying in here until I've got a pretty good mixture. And this will probably be about it. I'll have to sweep up my mess here. But this is it. I mean, it's not really complicated. These seed heads haven't fertilized yet, so they're going to decompose pretty fast. They're pretty juicy. Not going to worry about that. It's got a bunch of weeds in it, which is always good. Weeds are always good scavenging stuff. And we'll just push it under and get that in here. This is going to be decomposing, I think, pretty fast. I really don't come back. I just push it down under, get it all in there and get it kind of mixed up. And then I know it's going to, you know, basically start floating to the top. But the top on this barrel locks down, so it really can't go anywhere. And it can vent if there's any gases that build up, and they can vent off. But what I have found, the more I do this, is when I first started doing it the first time, I really got strong odors. And what I found now is that I really don't get that much of a strong odor out of this stuff while it's decomposing. But I'm also not going to get into this thing now for a good 6 weeks. I'm going to let nature take its course. And we use this ring to lock it down so it can't pop off. And that's it. So there's a little bit of looseness here to the top, so we can get, you know, a little gas can vent out. It's not a problem. And that's it. If perchance the material forces itself up and starts forcing some of the liquid out, that has happened in the past, but that's why I'm leaving, you know, at least an inch or two of headspace in there. So if you fill it all the way to the top with water, the chances are, you know, the stuff could start to percolate out. But this setup also prevents bugs from getting in, so we don't really get a fly problem. And that's all there is about to this. And all I got to do, like I said, is just clean up my mess here, and that'll be it. So the question might come down, folks, is saying, why are you doing this? Just buy some fertilizer, man. Get a bag of manure or something, you know? And yeah, we do use, you know, chicken manure, or kind of stay away from steer manure because of the issue with herbicides. But that's it for, you know, bagged stuff. We'll buy that in the spring. We'll put it on the beds once. But during the growing season, this is the material I'm using for getting transplants in and getting things, you know, really set up during the growing season. This is the material I'm adding to it. Now, there are things you can do if you really want to boost nitrogen to a higher nitrogen fertilizer. That you can use this same technique with fish parts, you know, so like if you had access to, cleanings of fish from a cannery or something like that, or even on your own. You could create a bucket of what they call Jadam liquid fish. I'm kind of making that up, but basically, it's a form of fish fertilizer that would basically go through the same decomposition process. It will take a while, and that one does kind of smell. So you definitely got to add a lot of biochar to that. Now there is another way of making fish aminos, which is kind of the same idea, and it uses brown sugar. So that's from the traditional Korean natural farming. And evidently that one doesn't really have any odor at all, because basically what you're doing is you're really desiccating the fish, pulling out all the oils, pulling out all the good material out of the fish, and it over time, the soft bones and stuff like that structure, the fish parts, it tends to just kind of decompose and melt into it. And it takes a long time to make that, 6 months maybe in good case, but the longer it goes, the better it gets. And that is one way to do it without making the smell. But you can create a fertilizer that's more specific to the type of crop you're raising by making the fertilizer out of the crop itself. So if you're using cuttings and things like that from a crop during its growth phase, those would be good things to put into a fertilizer. Okay, so the question you might ask again is, why would you do this? Well, as you can see what's going on in the world today, fertilizer is not cheap. And it's probably not going to get reasonable in cost. It's probably going to get more unreasonable in cost before it gets reasonable in cost. And this is something you can do, and actually you can start using this type of fermented extract. If the time of the year is warm, meaning you got daytime temps up in the 80s and the nighttime temps are maybe in the 60s, it will go fast. So you can actually start using some of this stuff probably in 3 or 4 weeks. I have made tonics out of comfrey, and the same process in a 5-gallon bucket. Just put a lot of it in comfrey in there with leaf mold soil and some biochar, and in 3 or 4 weeks, it's a nice liquid fertilizer. So it's cheap, it's easy, and it's effective. So that's why I do it. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to take you along, show you just in general, this is a great time of year to do this if you want to make some fertilizer. Most of the country here in the United States is in the growth season. It's in spring. It's a great time to do it. Take advantage of all the natural minerals and stuff that these weeds, it's a good way to get even with weeds too, that get in your way. Just turn them into fertilizer. I think if you check out a channel of David the Good, you'll enjoy his channel. He does a lot of this kind of stuff, and he calls it fermented swamp water or something like that. Anyway, he's got a great sense of humor, and I recommend checking his channel out too. So anyway, thanks folks for coming along tonight, and or today and tonight, and stay safe out there, and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.